Amadou Diallo, Dante Wright, Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, Atatania Jefferson, and George Floyd. They're just a few of those whose lives were taken by the police in the United States. On July 17th of 2014, the world heard the words, "I can't breathe," echoed from Eric Garner as he was placed in an illegal chokehold and wrestled to the ground by Daniel Pantaleo, a New York City police officer. Hello, this is Black America, and I am your host, Carol Jenkins. And with us today is Emerald Garner, daughter of Eric Garner, who has written a wonderful memoir entitled Finding My Voice, Grieving Eric Garner and Pushing for Justice. In it, she discusses the fight for justice for the unjust murder of her father. Emerald, thank you so much for being here. I love your book.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
The subject, is one that I wish you had not had to cover as the child of a victim of police brutality. But that is just the point that you were making, that most people do not understand what happens to the families. How did you get to the point of writing about it?
I think it was the impact of the media and how my father was portrayed in the media, how the families of police brutality victims and state violence, period, how they're portrayed in the media. It's like they're a thing and not a person. And it's just super unfortunate that, you don't get to hear the good things. You hear all of the bad things and, then you see the videos and stuff. And I was just like, I want my story to be told in my voice. I definitely feel like we did that. And I want people to hear me as they're reading, because this is my life, and it's real. It's not for cameras. It's not for publicity. It's me.
And you write it straightforward in a way that is helpful, I think, to many people. You describe yourself, as maybe presenting a few problems, in the family, which is very, very helpful for people who don't understand what teenage years can be like. So you were young when this happened.
When it happened, my brother was 19. My sister, she was 23, going on 24. And, I had all of those years. I had 22 years with my father. He got to be a grandfather, see my daughter, see my sister's daughter at the time. And it was like, it was more of a reflection into who I am because of him. So it was like I wanted people to know who he was and what the impact on my life he had, because I see how his death impacted people. So I wanted to make sure that his life meant, the same to people. It's just like, don't just remember the stuff after he died, remember the stuff before he died as well.
Well, you talk about the traumatizing of having to watch the video over and over again, and people who would interview you and say, sorry, we have to show it, And your sister, I want to talk a little bit about your older sister, Erica, because we were talking before we started taping about surviving, and she did not survive this. Your father was killed, and then she became the voice of the family seeking justice. Tell us a little bit about what she went through.
So for me, in my point of view, with Erica, she felt alone. She felt like no matter what, she was going to do it herself. And she wanted to make sure that the story was not forgotten. And with that, came with a lot of issues. We all suffered from mental health issues after the death of my father. So, and it really hit her really hard. So the first day that everything happened, I watched a little bit of the video, but I couldn't finish watching it. And then I didn't watch the video in its entirety until 5 years later when we were in the CCRB trial. But for Erica, she watched it pretty much every day, all the time. And that took a piece of her every single time until she had nothing left. And I feel like for her, like she kept fighting until she couldn't fight anymore. And when she passed away, I really had to sit back and say, this can't happen to me. It just cannot happen to me. Like, I cannot allow this situation to kill me as it killed my sister, because if this wouldn't have happened, she would still be here raising her children, but she's not. So I've had to step in to be a leader in the movement, as well as be a parent to the two children who don't have any parents to take care of them.
So and there are those who say that she died of a broken heart. I mean, it was
A massive heart attack at 27 with no prior heart health issues. It was definitely a broken heart. She was broken.
So it clearly took a toll on her, and she had
Yes.
2 children. She had just had a baby. You took both children in to raise them, and you had your grandmother who was, ill at the same time, and
Yes.
you have a daughter, and all of this happened, because of that outrageous act of a police officer and with an illegal chokehold, killing your father over, I might add, something that seemed ridiculous in the first
Absolutely.
place.
Yes. It's just, when that happened, it was kind of like a domino effect because 2014, my father died. Then Erica died in 2017. My nephew was only 4 months when she died. So, and then my niece, she was 8. So it was like, it was really, really, really traumatic. And then with my grandmother, she was 90, so it's not like it was sudden. Her illness progressed, and I was just like,
Dementia,
it was dementia that she had. It was no, thank God she didn't die from COVID. She didn't die alone in the hospital. I was sitting right there with her till she took her last breath, and I made it my intention to do home hospice even with the kids because I wanted them to understand the transition and the way that I explained it to them. And I always get emotional because I told them we didn't get a chance to say goodbye. When I saw my sister in the hospital, she was in a coma. When, I saw my father, he was on TV, dead in front of the world. So when my grandmother had, I was very close to my grandmother. So when it was, her time to transition, I was like, she's not going to transition alone in a hospital bed with nobody around her. She's going to be with us. So the night before she passed away, the kids spent the night in the room with her. Like, we were all with her. And then when she woke up the next day, she waited until I left the room to leave.
Right.
Because I was like, oh, let me go put the clothes in the laundry and I'll be right back. By the time I got downstairs, they called me like, you need to come back upstairs. And then when I got upstairs, that's when she was gone. So it was just, I got to say goodbye. So I think that was the closure that I needed to find my strength again. Because before that, I was broken. I was like, I'm just losing. I'm losing. But I felt like I had a win when I got to say goodbye and I, talked to her. And even though, she would be like, oh, Amy was her sister's name. And I look like her sister, Amy. So I'd be like, who's my mother? And she would say, Pinky. So I was like, I know you know who I am, but you're just calling me Amy because I look like Amy.
Right. I don't know, Emerald, that was a lot. And the fact that you did survive, there are many people who would wonder, and you talk about it in the book, of where you may not have survived all of that, but for the help of Reverend Sharpton. And do you want to talk a little bit about, I know that he was so involved in the case, and he sometimes gets, a bit of criticism, but you point out the things that he did for you and your family that he did not take any credit for and was totally instrumental in your being here today to talk with us about your life.
That's my guy, National Action Network, and the whole entire team and everybody. They really had my back. And it was like, at the time, I was dealing with a lot of mental health issues, and I was dealing with a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, and for me, it showed up as anger. So, I was angry a lot. I got a lot of, Emerald, you need to calm down, and from him, sit down, I need to talk to you. It was just one of those situations that he stepped in a way that was like, I can push you, but I can only push you but so much. You got to take care of this, this, and this before we can get here. So it's like, I had to really take a step back from the network, from everything, and figure out where my place is in the movement. Because I couldn't be everywhere. I have the kids at home. Childcare is very scarce for 3 children, especially a baby. So it was super difficult. But with his support, with National Action Network support, just picking up the phone when I call, welcoming me every time, and understanding the mental health struggle that I was dealing with, being instrumental in making sure that I was able to receive the help that I needed because I needed that. And if I didn't have that, I really don't know where I would be because even the little things help. Like I have an issue with the kids at school and I just to be able to call somebody and say, hey, I just really, really don't have the emotional capacity to deal with this. Like, can you just step in and help and just take care of this so that I can take care of that. And that was what he did, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, and you talk in the book about your experience with therapists who were not helpful at all, and that's one of the things that we need to say right
Yes.
now. It's very often therapists, even though if you give them the best shade on it, you know, they're trying to be helpful, but they're not.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that, because you are offering that now as a part of your work in the movement. You found your place in the movement, and that is to share the strength and everything that you've learned during this process.
So for me, it was mostly like, like when we go to therapy, I went through the foster care system when, I was 15, and dealing with a therapist that's going to tell me, oh, yeah, I'm just this little black girl from Brooklyn, a little rough around the edges, very smart, very intelligent, like to ask questions, but I was just a little rough around the edges. And then to get in front of a therapist who's like, well, why do you feel so angry? It's just like, why would you ask me a question like that? I've been taken away from my mother, and I'm here with these people that don't even want to buy food.
Yeah.
So
You should explain that in your teenage years,
Yes.
the family was separated from
yes, the
from
family
your
was
mom.
separated. I explain it in the book, like how everything happened. We weren't young, we were teenagers or
Right.
whatever, and my brothers were a little bit younger.
But in the foster care system, which is
It's-
pretty rough.
Yeah, it's super rough. You have social workers, then you have the law guardians, and then you have the agency, and then there's certain things you can do, and then certain things you can't, and then some of the foster parents are not very nice.
Right.
Some of them don't, they don't say the right things, they don't do the right things.
Right.
And for me, a lot of things showed up as anger. So when I go into therapy and I sit with a therapist who's not from New York like me, so when I say y'all, or, or I say, I'm done, they really just did not understand. And then when I got to a therapist that understood me, it was just like, oh, like this is possible. It's possible for me to sit with somebody who can understand where I'm coming from and also give me the tools I need to overcome my situation.
And now you're offering that to other
To
young
other
people.
people.
Talk to us about how that works. And I mean, it's just tremendous. I mean, you have to make sure that they read the book, right?
Yes, they have to read the book.
In fact, everyone has to read the book. You will be improved. Your sense of morality and sense of, the way forward will be improved once you read Emerald's book. I want so talk about what you're doing for the kids, and then I want to circle back to the case and progress, if we can put it in those terms, in the case. But
Yes.
what the services that you're offering now?
So right now, I started the We Can't Breathe Inc., which is an organization to focus on state violence in any form that it may show up. So we have 3 pillars, which is Hearts for Justice, which is our mental health pillar, and then we have Jobs for Justice, which is job development, and then After 5 for Justice, which is really important to me because we want to offer counseling and therapy services after 5 p.m., like in the wee hours of the morning, because I know I used to sit up at night, 3 o'clock in the morning, wishing that I had somebody to talk to or somebody to call that was unbiased, did not know anything that was going on, but just had an ear for me to so that I can talk. So it was really important for me to create those things. So we have a hotline that you could call, you can speak to somebody. It doesn't necessarily have to be a scheduled meeting. It doesn't have to be something, if you just want to call one time
Right.
and just get it out, then we will do that. What we're working on is being somewhat of a resource center. So, we don't have capacity yet, with to hire therapists and stuff like that. But what we want to do is outsource. So if we have organizations that offer mental health, if we have students who need to put in the hours, if we have centers that would do intake and help out with crisis, like, refer them to, I usually refer people to National Action Network because that's where they have legal night. They have a bunch of different resources.
Right.
So I outsource to them, but if there's other organizations I could partner with that can help my young people, it'll be great. I took 2 young people to National Action Network, and the young people ended up getting one got a job. She got support services for housing. She got support services for food. She got support services for like phone bill payment, groceries and stuff like that. So it's like that's the kind of thing that we want to focus on. We want to meet the needs of the youth where they are. Because we could offer them a job, but if they don't have nowhere to live, they don't have a bed to sleep in that night, they don't have a phone, kids, they need a phone, they need to
Doesn't
be
exactly
around.
solve the problem.
It doesn't solve the problem by just saying, oh, go to this therapy session. It's like,
Right.
what do you need to get up out the bed in the morning?
Right.
And if you don't have a drive to get up out the bed in the morning, guess what? They're not going to get up out the bed in the morning.
Wow. So that's the Healing Justice.
That's the Healing Justice for us.
Healing Justice Village.
The
right?
village, yes. I meet with women whose children were either are currently incarcerated or have been killed in police custody, and we're really going hard for solitary confinement, to end solitary confinement. I have to definitely shout out to Denise, Tamara, Diane, and Jay, and everybody that joins, and Darlene, everybody that joins the call, because from the first time that we met, feeling the energy be so low, and then coming to a couple of weeks later and just having conversations with them and going through those emotions with them, it's been a difference. So I see I see Tamara, she's like, oh, we have to do this and we have to do. I was like, oh, you told me you don't want to talk. You sounded like me 5 years ago when I didn't want to talk. And now she's facilitating the meeting, she's scheduling things, she's doing things. I'm just like, look at my girl.
Isn't it terrific that you can actually see that that it's working?
Yes,
actually.
Because I had no hope.
Right.
I really had no hope. And then when I look at them and I see like they're very low, they don't have any hope, I'm just like, just give me a chance,
right?
And we'll get you there. Right. It's going to take a while because it took 8 years for me, but I'm not fully there.
It's important to know that it's not necessarily going to happen overnight.
It's not.
And in one session.
No.
And with all the other issues that are, causing you pain in your life.
It takes consistency. You have to be consistent. You have to be dedicated. You have to really want to do it because, and Tamara make a good point. If you're not receptive of it, like it's not going to work. So for a long time, I didn't receive the therapy. Like, my relationship with God was very, null and void. It was non-existent. And then I started to do more to tap into the spiritualities, tap into religion, to figure out what works for me. Like, do I believe in God? Do I not believe in God? Like, what is my thing? So I had to really sit with myself and start to hear and listen because I really needed direction. But I really found it, like, within myself, kind of, because it was like I had to figure out what that thing was.
Yeah,
what my purpose
after
is.
show, I want to go stand really close to you. I want some of those vibes to rub off on me. But now the one thing that makes me so angry, speaking of anger, is that there are way too many children like you whose fathers or mothers have been killed by police in this country, much less anyone else. So talk to us about, I know that there are developments in the case. Pantaleo was finally fired. It took 5 years to get him out of his so-called desk job, but you thought that you saw him out in the...
Yeah, he was out in the streets.
He was out.
Doing... I don't know if he was on patrol. I can't say that, but I know that he was out. I saw him. People saw him. I worked on Staten Island for 2 years after my father passed away. I had to get a job, and that ended up being the job that I got, and it was on Staten Island. So it was a lot.
So while all of that unjustness, he finally fired, and they took away his pension, but you have been asking for the file. And it has been denied you. And there is now a new date coming up where you may get to see.
I hope that we get to see. A lot of the things that came out in the CCRB trial, I was completely unaware of. I stayed away from that part because I saw how it broke down my sister. So after that day at the courthouse where I was yelling and screaming, for me, I was mentally checked out. Like I was not fully there. I feel like that was my breaking moment. That's when I knew like this was just a little bit too much. I'm doing too much. So after that, it was just like I had to like step away from that part of it because the corruption, the cover-ups, the lies, the statements, it just wasn't adding up, and it was just super it was like the anxiety, like it just went to the max. And then for him not to be fired, and then they're not filing the indictment, they're not, arresting him, they're not doing any of those things. But then we come into the CCRB and they see that something was wrong with this whole situation. So I'm curious to know, what did they see that the FBI did not see? Because if the CCRB, which is only to get him fired, saw that he was negligent, that he did not do what he was supposed to do, and he was way beyond his,
and
that it wasn't supposed to happen.
Illegal then.
Exactly. They said it was banned.
Right.
They said it was banned. It wasn't illegal. It wasn't all of this. I said it doesn't matter. Somebody died.
Right.
So it didn't matter to me. So when the judge said that we're finding him guilty, and you guys looked at the same evidence that the federal government looked at. So why didn't we get an indictment?
Right.
So that's the purpose of getting those files and getting those, and that's what Erica wanted. Erica wanted those things. If you go back to her interviews, that is the first thing, and that was the only thing that she was focused on. What are you guys investigating? What is the evidence? What's going on in the courtroom? What we need to know. What are the statements? What happened? What is it? The first day that everything happened on July 17th, the statements that were entered were not the same statements that were made 5 years later at the CCRB. A lot of things changed in a lot of people's reports, especially the police officers. So that needs to be shown to the public, because how else are we going to point it out? Like, this is corruption. This is a cover-up. There's a lot of things. They said that he was alive when he got to the hospital. No, an officer said that he was dead on arrival when he got there.
So many
Changes.
contradictions,
Yes.
and changes of testimony. But there is the Eric Garner law now. So
Yes.
talk to us about the impact of that, knowing that there is something standing in the way between that. It didn't save your father. I mean, again, when I go back to selling cigarettes, please, come on. Do they not have anything better to do with their time than to get into, a tussle like that over something so, what I consider to be frivolous? I mean, it's like the traffic stops. There are things that
There was so much more happening that day.
Right.
And it was just like, it was a targeted action. That's how I wholeheartedly feel. But the Eric Garner law, we stood with Brian Benjamin, Kirsten Gillibrand. She supported it. Everybody supported it and endorsed it. I think we had 3 people who voted against the law. So we were like, okay, you don't matter. The majority wins. So goodbye. So we were like, we were super excited. We did a lot of campaigning, a lot of social media, a lot of media. We did a lot of everything to make sure that this law got passed. And we actually did it with 3 pieces of legislation. The Stephon Clark law, which is you can't shoot anybody who's running away. And the Andrew Cares law is when the Andrew Cares Act, which is if somebody's asking for medical attention and they're in custody, you have to give them medical attention right away. And then the chokehold, the anti-chokehold bill. So those were like my pride and glory, because I'm just like, now we have a New York State law that says that. And, of course, I'm pushing for the federal legislation.
And how is that going?
It's going good. I spoke to Kirsten Gillibrand. She's definitely supporting it again.
Senator Gillibrand is going to support it. Right?
Yeah, she's going to support it. She's going to stand behind it. She's super supportive. And she said that she's going to represent it, and we're going to bring it back up, and we're just going to try to get as much people as we can. We got over 1,000 signatures for the petition that I started. It's been amazing. The support and the people that have come out and signed petitions, shared my posts on social media, because social media is very big. So I need people to hit like, subscribe, share, all of those things.
Right.
Because we're really doing some dope things, and I really want people to understand, everybody has their place, everybody has their lane, and this is my lane. And I'm going to stay in it. I'm not stepping on no toes.
Isn't it great when you find your lane?
Yes, when you find your purpose.
Right. So talk to me about the rest of the family now. You have all of these, I consider to be all of these children. There are 3.
Mm-hmm, there's 3. There's
Your
all
daughter,
of these children.
I have 3 grandchildren. Yes, all of these children. How are they doing? Erica's children, her daughter is now 13.
She's now 13. She was very sad for a long time. She's like, I used to always be like, Alyssa, what's going on? And she'd just be real quiet and, reserved and, really down. And then, she would eat like a bird. And I'd be like, you're not hungry? And she's like, no, I'm not hungry. And then I told her, I was like, well, you got to try 2 new things every month for a year. So now she's making friends. She's in 8th grade. She's talking more. I told the teacher, I was like, she's very shy. She doesn't talk. She's like, Alyssa made friends. Right. She's fine. I was like, oh, okay, so she's adjusting really well. And then Kaylee, she's like, she has to share, my daughter, she has to share the attention. So, of course that's not fair. How come I didn't get this? And what about me? So,
I know, we have 2 girls too.
Yes,
so
now she's, now she's the middle child now. So, and then the baby, he's 5 now. He's the man of the house. Right. He's the hurricane. I call him Hurricane EJ because he just wants to run all day. So I'm trying to get him on somebody's track team. Right. So I try to keep them busy. It's very hard. We're trying to work and keep them, and we're looking for our forever home now. So the girls are on Trulia like, oh, Auntie, I found this house. I said, well, we got to get the money first, baby. Let's get the money first. She's like, well, what's your budget? I was like, oh, my budget. Right. But
Well, that's one of the things that you say in the book is that people always look at the problems solved once there is a settlement. When
Yes.
In fact, that's not
That's not the case. That is absolutely not the case. The lawsuit went 7 ways, and I didn't get $1 million. I didn't get that. And everybody got what they got. And I didn't get enough to get a house. I'm still working, so I've always been working. It's just that recently, after starting to put the 501c3 together, I was like, having a full-time job and then still trying to do this work was becoming a lot. So then I strategized, so we were able to get seed funding so that I could do the work full-time and still be able to work with the kids. And because it's very hard. This one gets out at 2:55. This one gets out at 5:30. This one gets out at 6. I'm in the house by myself.
Sure.
Homework, and then we went through remote learning.
Oh my
That was
goodness,
another
the whole
trauma.
pandemic,
So
right,
3 different grades, 3 laptops.
I don't know, Emerald.
a lot.
I don't know. I'm already giving you the stamp of you are something else. You are incredible.
Thank
And
you.
Thank you so much for being the survivor and telling your story. I think it's one that that everybody should read this book.
Yes.
You need this sort of reset on what life is like, what it can be, and what you can survive and go on to help other people. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Emerald Garner for sharing her memoir, Finding My Voice, Grieving Eric Garner and Pushing for Justice. And so we're praying for you to continue your journey for healing and for the other families of other victims of police brutality. Thank you so much for that. That's it for us. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm Carol Jenkins. The program is Black America. We'll see you the next time.